Megan Olivi, Brett Okamoto, and Teddy Atlas backstage at Madison Square Garden. UFC 268 has just wrapped up. And gentlemen, what a night it was. Brett, I will start with you. The welterweight title was successfully defended by Kamaru Usman in another 25-minute fight against Colby Covington. First one was a little over 24 minutes. So these two guys have spent 10 rounds in the octagon together. How would you compare the first and second fight?
You know, I think Colby found it late. I think it's interesting that, like you mentioned, they've had 10 rounds, and Kamaru's won both fights, but it was really Colby closing the show in the second fight. I thought I scored the fourth round for him. I scored the fifth round for him. So it held up what we had been saying for a while, that this was probably Kamaru's toughest test in the division. But Kamaru's just so impressive, man. I mean, I'm sitting there on press row, and I'm like, how are you going to beat this guy? He's smart. He's well conditioned. He is, if you're out striking him, he's going to wrestle you. If you come in with the grappling, he's going to outstrike you like he did with Colby. He checks off every box right now. I thought that Colby fought a pretty good fight. He tried to make it dirty. He tried to make it ugly late, and it just wasn't enough. It's just nothing's enough against this guy right now, and that's why we're calling him the pound for pound best.
Absolutely, Teddy. In terms of what you saw, what was the biggest difference maker?
Early on in the fight, when Usman got the real lead. He's more controlled, more deliberate, where he doesn't put himself in bad positions too often. He's always balanced, he's always in position when he throws something. He's not reckless with his aggression. Covington gets a little, take nothing away from him, great fight.
Right.
And he behaved like a champion, and he came back tremendously, and like he said, but he'll put himself in more danger by technically being out of sorts sometimes, being too aggressive, recklessly aggressive. We're very, very rare, and it was rare tonight because Usman did it later in the fight, and that's part of the reason why Covington got back into the fight, but very rare does Usman get out of position. When he throws something, he believes it's going to land. Mm-hmm. He doesn't waste punches. Mm-hmm. Covington wastes punches. And it's not a knock on him.
Sure.
He'll win the punch number contest, moving his hands. But the other guy, the champion, Usman, will win the contest of more effective punches.
Sure.
Because of his mentality, because of his technique, because of his attitude, his makeup. In that kind of way is to be more deliberate. Just look at them. It follows you.
Yeah.
Your personality follows you in the ring. It does. The other guy is a nut. I'm saying it in a nice way.
Sure.
But, he's out there. He's crazy. He's doing, and then spots your fight that way. The other guy don't talk much, Usman, and he's all business.
Yep.
And his technique follows suit with his personality.
100%.
And that's what won it for him, and that's what wins it for him, because you know what you're getting. He's always dependable, always deliberate, always on the money.
Yeah.
We saw more wrestling this time around. That was the big topic. Would we see them shoot for takedowns? But Brett, when it all came down to it, Kamaru possessed the stronger set of skills in pretty much every area. So what's next for him?
Look, I still think that there are some interesting matchups for him. I think Stephen Thompson would be a super interesting fight. Unfortunately, Thompson, he had his chance. He needed to win that fight against Gilbert Burns. He didn't get it done. So I think that would be an interesting fight. Leon Edwards, of course, he's got to beat Jorge Masvidal. Leon Edwards has been deserving of this title fight for a long time, but he can't seem to quite get over the hump. He needs to get over that hump against Jorge Masvidal, and especially if he can look good doing it. I think Usman would want to fight him again, because then there would be some heat behind it. And then there's Chimaev, and we're rushing Chimaev, but why wouldn't we rush Chimaev? Because of the way that he's looked. I think that there's intrigue there. I don't really need to see much more out of Chimaev. I've seen enough. Have him fight a top guy for sure, but that fight is right there, and I think it's going to be an interesting one for Usman when he gets it.
And listen, he wants it too. It's not like they're trying to push Chimaev into a place he doesn't want to be. He wants it too, but we will see how it plays out at 170 pounds. But Teddy, the co-main event between Rose Namajunas and Zhang Weili was absolutely incredible. Going into the fifth round, how did you have it scored?
I thought that the winner of that round would probably have their hand raised. I was favoring Rose, a little bit, but I thought that that's how important that last round was, because there were ebbs and flows. There really were. Where both of them, I always talk about geography. Geography is, you guys get tired of hearing me talk about. And thank you for being, such nice people to indulge me and to put up with that geography, Teddy talking geography again. But thank you. But they were all, both of them, the geography. Rose had the edge striking, or supposed to have the edge striking. And then all of a sudden, her opponent started to be smart and counterpunch and turned it around a little bit. I thought Rose could have used her reach a little more. She got those long arms to control the outside, the geography in striking. But again, her opponent, Zhang, was smart enough to get her to come forward, give up her length, give up her height, and then counter and be effective. And so they were back. And then, again, Zhang's supposed to maybe have an edge on the floor, so she got on the floor. And then all of a sudden, Rose was able to get on the floor and get in good position and nullify that.
Yep.
So it was really, truly an even fight in true terms of what's even.
Yep.
That they were both going to each other's geography and making it right for themselves.
That's the part I found fascinating about this fight, is because when you're talking about champions, they should be matchup proof to me, right? You got to be matchup proof if you're going to be a champion. And Rose, up until this moment tonight, I didn't get the feeling, and I think the sport didn't get the feeling, that she was matchup proof. That Weili, if she was able to use her physicality and get her to the floor, that was Weili's path to victory. We saw in the 4th and 5th rounds, it was Rose taking her down and Rose getting into top position. So I just think that up until this point, Rose has been a phenomenal finisher. She has shown that finishing ability. But now you're like, wait a second, now she can beat these other women at their own game. That's when you have a champion. That's when you have a dominant champion on your hands, because there is no matchup that strongly favors against her.
Right.
That's what I was saying, everyone. You hear what he just said? That's exactly what I was saying.
That was exactly Teddy's words.
That's geography. That's he just put it in a better way.
I'm learning from you, Teddy.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah, no, I love it. So that's our co-main event. Obviously, we could talk about that fight forever, but we've got to move on to one final fight that opened the pay-per-view. And I feel like every time we do this, I'm like, man, that was the craziest fight I've ever seen.
I thought I was in Manila for a minute. Thriller in Manila.
Yeah.
But then I said, no, it's the Thriller in MSG. I mean, just extraordinary.
What do you think of Michael Chandler? Did he just decide that Justin Gaethje's not going to hurt me anymore? I mean, when he was putting his hands down and getting hit with those shots and spitting blood back, it almost like he made a conscious decision that, like, nothing this guy hits me with is going to put me out.
I think you're 100% right, because his whole attitude would say you were right. Because it's just like he got to that point and he said, no more. Kind of. Sometimes movies do parlay, do kind of compare to real life. Sometimes they do. That's why they make them that way, because it can sometimes be a comparison to real life. It's kind of like Rocky in that fight with the big Russian guy, whatever his name was, when he just said, you ain't hurting me no more.
Yeah.
When he just said he was getting dropped all over the place,
yeah.
The fight would have been stopped 100 times. But it's the movies. But then he just said, you're not hurting me no more.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't allow himself to be hurt no more. It's along those lines. Because I talk about all the time, boxing, your sport, one thing they have a lot in common, but one thing they have in common is 75% is mental. And so when you mentally take yourself to that place, it's a place to be taken to. It means something. And I think Chandler took himself to that place that you just said, like Rocky. They said, you're not hurting me no more. I'm here.
And what's remarkable is we're talking about the guy who lost the fight. Michael Chandler actually lost this fight. Justin Gaethje was very, very impressive to me. It was almost like the moments that Michael Chandler was having. It was like when he was having success, it was obviously great for Michael Chandler, but you're like, he's going to wear himself out punching Justin Gaethje, and then Justin Gaethje is going to have the advantage. Gaethje is just, he's good, man, and he's been the victim of poor timing, just because he happened to be the last guy to lose to Khabib. This guy should have been fighting for a championship already, so I'm looking forward to him getting that opportunity.
Can I throw one thing in with that fight that was, to me, a turning point when they were striking and all of a sudden Gaethje got the edge? They were striking mostly from the same level. These kind of punches. And all of a sudden, Gaethje had the understanding, the cerebralness that I always talk about, because they're all tough. Who could be smarter? That's what separates them. To all of a sudden switch to an uppercut. It wasn't coming from the same direction. That made a huge difference. Yeah. All of a sudden, because their eyes were locked in here, and it came here. And what was amazing was that's what turned around for Gaethje. He hurt him with the uppercut. Yeah. But then later in the fight, the guy said, if you could do it, I could do it.
That's right.
And he goes, take your own medicine. And he hurt him with the uppercut.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a great fight.
Well, there's obviously a lot we could dissect from this night, but I think all of us are pretty tired. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning.
I want to keep going. I want to go. We got to stop now?
Teddy and Brett will have their own sideshow.
Okay.
I appreciate your time, gentlemen. This was an incredible night in Manhattan. I'm so honored and thrilled to have been here. I'm so joyous that we got to do this show. Thank you both, and we'll see you at the next one.
Absolutely.
We'll see you there, too.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.